guys. I hope you managed to find the other videos on YouTube. It took Mrs. Ruskell a long time to work out how to do it. I'm not very good with things like that, but we did it, and I hope you've enjoyed it. So we got to the bit in the story where Michael had lost his temper because people were not believing him. So we're ready for the next bit. I'm not a liar, he screamed at him. I'm not. Mrs. Ferguson put Jamie in one corner and Michael in another. They hadn't been there 5 minutes before Mr. Jenner, the head teacher, came in. Much to Michael's surprise and relief, he didn't even seem to notice him standing in the corner. He was putting on his hat and coat. He was clearly going somewhere, and in an almighty hurry too. Mrs. Ferguson, he was saying, I want your class to stop whatever it is they're doing now. I want them to get their coats on and assemble at once in the playground. And hurry, please. Why? What's going on? Mrs. Ferguson asked. Is it a fire drill? No, nothing like that. You're not going to believe this, Mr. Jenner said, but apparently there's a huge great whale in the river right here, right now, just down the road from us. It's true. Not every day a whale comes to town, is it? It's on the telly, but we can see it for real. So I thought we'd all go and take a look. Quick, as you can, please. Else he could be gone before we get there, and we don't want that, do we? Everyone turned to look at Michael. For some time after Mr. Jenner had left, no one said a word, not even Mrs. Ferguson. But in spite of the look of utter amazement on Jamie Balshaw's face, Michael could not for one moment enjoy his triumph. All he could think of was that his whale hadn't made it to the sea, and that he must still be floundering in the river, still there and trapped. He knew only too well what that might mean. He had to be there now. He was out of the classroom, across the playground, already full of excited children being herded into lines, and on his way down to the river before anyone could stop him. By the time Michael arrived, there were crowds everywhere, hundreds of them, lining the river on both sides, and all along Battersea Bridge too. He pushed through the crowds and hoisted himself up onto the wall so he could see over. There were police down on the shoreline, keeping everyone back from the wall. From the moment he saw the whale, Michael could see he was in serious trouble. He was wallowing helpless in the shallows at the mercy of the tide, unwilling or unable to move. Standing next to Michael was a building worker in a yellow hard hat and muddy boots. He was screaming down his phone, It's huge! Humongous, I'm telling you! Looks more like a bleeding shark to me, and he's going to get himself well and truly stuck in the mud if he's not careful, and that'll be his law. Yeah, just below Battersea Bridge. I'll look out for you. No, he'll still be here. He's not going anywhere, poor blighter. And don't forget to bring the camcorder, right? This won't happen again. Once in a lifetime, this is. There was half a dozen people around the whale, a couple of divers amongst them trying to encourage him back into the water. But Michael could see it was no use. Without him, the whale seemed to have lost all will to live. He was trying to decide what he could do, how he could get to the whale without being stopped by the police, when he found Mr. Jenner beside him, and Mrs. Ferguson too, both out of breath. You shouldn't have gone running off like that, Michael, said Mrs. Ferguson. You had us worried sick. He needs me, Michael told her. I've got to go to him. Leave it to the experts, said Mr. Jenner. Come on over with the other children now. We've got a great view where we are. I don't want a great view, Michael shouted. Don't you understand? I've got to save him. Michael didn't think twice after that. He climbed over the wall and raced along the shore towards the whale, dodging the police as he went. When Mr. Jenner tried to call him back, Mrs. Ferguson put her hand on his arm. Best leave him, she said. It's his whale. I'll go after him. By the time the police managed to catch up with Michael, Mrs. Ferguson was there to explain everything. They took some persuading, but in the end they said they could make an exception just this once, provided she stayed with them all the time, and provided both of them wore life jackets and didn't interfere. So, along with several others, Michael and Mrs. Ferguson were there when the tide began to rise, and at last the whale began to float free of the mud. Michael stayed as close to his head as he could, and talked to him all the while to reassure him. You'll be all right, he said. There's lots of us here, and we all want to help you. You'll swim out of here just like your grandfather did. All you have to do is swim. You must swim. You've got your whole family waiting for you out there. Do it for them. Do it for me. They walked knee-high with the whale out into the river, one of the divers swimming alongside him the whole time. Michael could see how hard the whale was trying. He was trying all he could, but he was so weak. Then, to rapturous cheers of everyone around, the whale seemed suddenly to find strength enough to move its tail, and he managed to swim away from the shore, blowing hard as he went. They watched him turning slowly out in the middle of the river, and then they saw everyone looking at him as he swam the right way. Another huge cheer went up, but Michael just wished they'd keep quiet. He sensed that all this noise must be bewildering and disorientating for him, but when the whale swam away under the bridge back across the sea, even Michael joined in the cheering. Like everyone else, when the whale dived down and disappeared, Michael thought he would be all right now, that he was well and truly on his way, that he'd make it this time for sure, but for some reason, by the time the whale surfaced again, he had turned and was coming back towards them. Within no time at all, he had drifted back into the shallows, and despite all they tried to do to stop him, he had beached himself again. I'm going to pause it there, and then we can watch the next bit.